2414 is a podcast about finding hope and common ground through casual conversation. Like the friends on the road in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 24, verse 14, we want to walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. Thanks for walking with us.
They were talking about everything that had happened. That's what it says in Luke 24:14. This is the podcast 2414. Welcome. My name is Dan Weber, sitting across from my Shane. You're my Shane. My friend, my co-host.
Ew.
You're the only Shane for me, Shane. Yeah, here we go. You're hearing this because we don't do any editing. We hit record, we hit stop, we hit post, and you are the beneficiary and victim of what that means.
Victim.
This is a podcast where we're processing life, and thank you for being part of the conversation today. We are in a little mini-series looking at rest and the biblical idea of Sabbath and what that means, what that might mean for our life, maybe some of the needs that could meet, some of the things we're feeling that has driven us to say, gosh, we got to explore this. Shane and I are not experts. We are, in many ways, failing at this. Right?
We're probably the worst people to
so we're not good.
Talk about this.
We're not good at this, and probably neither are you. So thanks for being part of the conversation. Before we dig into the aspect of rest we want to look at today, we like to share highs and lows because that's real life, and slowing down the process is a good thing. Mm-hmm. We've got a question of the day, somewhat related to our conversation later about rest. And then we're going to play one round of Wheels versus Doors, everyone's favorite podcast game, where you get to play along at home and guess which are there more of and which are there less of.
Yeah, if you ever ask, why do we do that? Because it's fun.
Because it's fun.
For us. I hope it is for you.
And fun matters.
And we had a series not too long back that was on the games we play, just how like board games and tabletop games bring people together. And
yeah, that was a great series for me because it helped me process and sort of think about why I enjoy this, and when I don't have that, what I'm missing in my life.
It really I've always had great experiences from tabletop games, and I feel like I'm kind of in a lull from it, like not as much as I had.
Would you consider a puzzle a tabletop game? Or
I think in the vein of how we are like talking about tabletop games, I'd say Okay. Like if you were like to say technically it's not a game or a sport or competitive, but for the function of like conversation and relationships, I think
when I was growing up, it was board games and card games and maybe lawn games, but tabletop wasn't a category. All right, here's the question of the day, Shane.
All right,
what is the last thing you've intentionally like lingered over to enjoy? So where you slowed down and you took delight or joy in something that you were consciously like stopping to enjoy. So I want to keep it broad because it could be any number of things. Yeah. So a high and a low and something you have slowed down to sort of just intentionally say this is good, and if I'm slower, I can appreciate this more. Or maybe you only noticed and appreciate it because you were slowing down in something.
Yeah.
All
okay.
Right.
Yeah, I think I've got.
You want to kick us off? So low and a high, and what's the last thing you've lingered over?
All right. Yes. So low would be, I just pulled my jeans out of the dryer like yesterday or whatever, and I'm wearing them now.
Okay.
And
curious where this is going, Shane.
Lauren,
are they tighter than normal? Like you put on some pounds?
That's it. That's my low and high. There
All
you go. No, okay. So I just washed them. They're fresh, clean pants.
This is good.
And Lauren made smoothies for us this morning, and I got in the car and I realized my shirt caught a blackberry and just rubbed blackberry all over my white shirt and my new woolly wash jeans. I was just like, it sucks.
One time I spilled like motor oil or something on this pair of shorts. Something like grease. I was doing something
not
manly.
Washable,
no, I was doing something manly. And Charlotte's like, "What, did you spill pudding on your shorts?" And I was like, "No." Like she had this image of me
like serious.
You just like sloppily eating pudding. And I was like, I was doing man stuff in the garage. And you think like you're just a slob, right?
Just
yes, and
gallons of pudding just
It wasn't a giant spill. All right, so you got some smoothie on your drawers. All right,
I got some. I got blackberry on it. Just
okay.
Not fun. Boo. Hi.
If that's the worst thing that happens this week, Shane, it's a pretty good week.
Oh.
It's not
supposed to be the worst thing that
no, I'm just if that's your low, I'm just rejoicing that that's a pretty good low.
Let me just sob heavily over this real quick. Let me really tell you about my.
Okay.
No, okay. It was just a low. It was a low from the day.
That counts.
All right. High would be. Let's see. I think. High would be. Lauren and I recently just started. I would say rewatching for both of us, but watching together the Harry Potter series.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not talk about this. I'm not an avid reader.
Okay.
Sorry to all you diehard readers.
I've read 2 or 3 of them.
Oh, you're just saying Harry Potter
of the Harry Potter
books ever. I was like, what?
No, I
read 2 or 3 books.
Reading.
Yeah, So I read the first one when I was in school, but just rewatching the movies, and it's just so good. I love watching a good series and a movie.
Yeah,
because I feel like if we watch a lot of bad ones unintentionally, or we try watching a show and why are we watching?
And by
this?
bad,
sucks.
you mean cheesy, not
It's just bad writing.
Okay.
That's normally what it comes down to. They didn't care about the plot, or there was just a money grab for sponsor or whatever, for whatever reason. So just Harry Potter, it's a good story, and so we just watched Order of the Phoenix. So that was my high. Last intentional thing I'd kind of slowed down to kind of relish in. I would say Lauren and I this past weekend went to the mall, and we were meeting some friends there. But while we were there, we lingered around for a little. We went into a candy store. And we just picked up kind of a wide assortment of candy.
That's awesome.
And it's kind of they got us. So it's they pay you for a quarter pound it's this much, for a pound it's this much. Ended up I don't know, they overcharged us so heavily on this candy, but it was whatever, we're buying it. And so we just got home, and it was just relishing and enjoying this candy. It just I just want to sit in this and eat this chocolate covered gummy bear and this gummy.
Is that a
shark.
real thing?
Yeah,
chocolate covered gummy bear.
We got all this random food and snacks. This oversized Reese's cup. It was just really enjoyable. I don't know. Whenever I get candy, it's always just 20 pounds of gummy bears, or not 20, but a huge pack of one thing. Yeah. So it was just a wide assortment of different candies from all over, and just made me feel like a kid, and just I could just delight in this taste, and not multitasking while eating them, just enjoying this sweet snack. Yeah.
That's awesome. It was candy store.
Yeah, candy store. It was really nice. So
outstanding.
Let's flip it over to you. Highs, lows, and what'd you slow down for?
Yeah, I've got a few highs and lows. So I'll kind of do them quickly. Lows, it's kind of a strange one, but I'm missing running because I'm still kind of recovering from what ended up being an 81-mile run. That's 2.5, 3 weeks ago. So it's not that long ago. And it
still feels recent.
Yeah, so I could probably be jogging and be fine, but I also want to be real intentional so I don't get injured, because I'd like to be, ambulatory for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I just, so not running kind of feels antsy.
Craving.
But my silly low, I was watching TV last night with Charlotte, and I got a mosquito bite on my right pinky toe, or my right ring toe. So next to the pinky toe. I was like, what is that? Is that a spot on my toe? It's a mosquito. And I tend to react pretty...
you saw the mosquito?
Well, I just kind of saw, I was watching the TV, and I kind of... Right, so here's a quick... Both of my pinky toes are kind of purple still.
I was going to say, aren't they
Yeah, so... there's some discoloration, so I didn't notice right away that something looked odd. Yeah. And then I felt that thing, and it didn't quite double the size of my toe, but it felt like it.
But it'd be bruised and itching on top of that.
Yeah, so right before bed, I got a mosquito bite on my toe. So that's a silly low, but it's a real low.
That's annoying.
Yeah, that was not a good moment yesterday.
Oh.
Highs, several highs. We painted part of our deck railing this week. So we've got a deck, and it's fallen apart, but we can't afford to fix it yet.
Make it last.
We're making it last. So some of it was looking pretty bad. So we got some white paint and some rollers, and so kind of like family work time. We spent a couple hours painting all the little, is it balusters, like the little pickets that are the
whatever. Yeah, I don't know technical
something like
name
baluster maybe. Anyway, so we only got about a third of the deck done, which my back hurt by the end. I'm all tired and sore, but it was fun to just get out there and like work together as a family.
Yeah.
So that a couple other highs related to that. We've had good family time this week. Apart from even laboring, just people being gracious and patient and nice and encouraging, and there's been a couple
people as in like your family.
Like me, I've been nicer. My kids are
You're the
nice.
people.
I don't want to say like, well, my kids were nicer to each other, as if I'm not part of the equation. As a family, we've largely been nice to each other this week. As opposed to being short and grumpy with each other. And then relatedly, somehow, Charlotte and I have had a number of times just like talk for a few minutes at a time. Yeah. Which sounds like it should be a given, but it is not typically a given in my life where, hey, we just have a half hour to talk. Yeah. That's saying that aloud sounds really terrible, that we can go, 7 days and not find a half hour to talk. But that is often the case. But this week we found a half hour to talk a couple of times. So it's like, wow, this is what it's like to be married to somebody I love.
Wow.
30 minutes at a time.
Try this more often.
So that's been a high.
That's awesome.
And then something I've lingered over recently, it sounds a little bit weird. In the front room of our house, we've got a reclining chair that looks out through a window onto our front yard and the street, and then the houses across the street. And I was just sitting there in the evening. I didn't have the TV on. There's not a TV in that room. And usually I have a book in my hand just immediately. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to have constant like input. I'm not always trying to learn or read or discover something. So I sat there without a book and looked out the window, and then across the street into the house, a couple to the left, they have these really super tall trees. Like, I don't know. I'm not good at guessing. You can ask my brothers.
1,000 feet tall.
I once guessed how tall a giraffe was, and my brothers still make fun of me because it was way off.
Hundreds of feet.
So yeah, I don't want to guess, but I would say it's at least twice as tall as a house, like a 2-story house.
Okay.
So whatever, a 4-story tree.
Yeah.
But it was a windy, so we live on the top of a hill, and so it was a windy day, and so these trees were there were 2 trees, and they were like swaying, and it like just kind of like dancing in the wind. And it was just really beautiful to watch. Just this kind of like elegant, it looked like, but I imagine like a hula person dancing with their arms out to the side, if you can kind of picture that. That's what these
tree form.
That's what these trees were doing. So they had these kind of all, wispy branches that were just, it looked like they were dancing in the wind. And since the wind is blowing consistently, these 2 trees looked like they were dancing together.
Yeah.
And it was just delightful to sit in my chair, and I kind of thought about Jesus of, consider the lilies and look at the flowers of the field. They're not worried about stuff. And so all these things are stressful in my life. I'm like, well, those trees are doing just fine. Yeah. Like they're not worried about whatever. They're not grumpy. They're not tired. They're just doing their thing in the wind. So it was really calming to watch these trees swaying in the wind.
Oh, that sounds really peaceful.
The opposite of that, though.
Oh,
this is maybe going back to low.
Oh no, a time you were rushing.
No, just nature is not always your friend. We've got a woodpecker who's moved into the green belt behind our house.
You know what kind of woodpecker?
A loud one.
Is it like a big woodpecker?
It's real loud.
So it got is it like a woodpecker?
It's loud all the time, Shane. I don't know what to tell you. I've never seen it. I just hear.
So it's like
constantly
rapid
knocking.
Tapping.
Yeah, it's
okay.
As opposed to what? Like Morse code?
Well, there's a woodpecker here in Washington called a pileated woodpecker.
Is that the red one?
Yeah, the red.
I see those in the Dash Point State Park where I run.
Okay.
So I'll stop and look at those because they're cool.
They're cool. But they do they're not like quick, like they do look more like because they got a big beak. And
it might be that though. I don't know.
I don't know anymore.
You have to give me a beat.
I've seen a lot of pileated woodpeckers in the.
Give me a beat. Give me beats per minute, and I'll go time it, and I'll try to match my metronome, and then we can take that to the internet.
I think it's just less rhythmic.
Rhythmic.
So you'll hear a woodpecker go whatever.
Yeah, this one's not rapid fire. It's probably more the slow one.
Maybe.
So anyway,
be careful. They can destroy.
Yeah, at first I was like, oh, that's cute. It's like nature, and there's animal sounds. And I'm like, I'm trying to read. This is really annoying. And then I'm like, well, I'm thankful it's in the trees and not on my house, and like just destroying my siding or something, sharpening its beak.
It might be.
It very well could be. Who knows? It's coming for the children.
You might have to replace that deck a little sooner.
Gosh. So yeah, sorry, that was a lot of highs and lows and lingering. Nature's beautiful. It's also the worst. It's trying to kill you.
But in the nature of taking our time, not rushing. Oh, yeah.
You want to rush right to the good stuff, but we got a game to play first, Shane.
We do. We made a promise to
Our
nobody.
listeners at home don't all know the rules. Will you explain how the game works?
Yes, this game is called Wheels versus Doors. There was an age-old question asked by Socrates, not really, but he said, are there more wheels or doors in the world? And Plato was like, I don't know.
And then TikTok came around and we solved it.
Yeah. So we've answered all the questions. But with that idea, are there more wheels or doors in the world? And then you kind of debate on, I don't know. It's an ambiguous question. But this game is modeled from that. There's a bunch of prompts.
We've never read the rules.
No, we don't know how to actually play. But there's about 6 prompts on here, and we have to guess which one there's the most of and which is there the least of.
That's how we play it.
And we're not going to guess what to the 10th
Put all
degree
6
of
in
the
order.
number. Yeah, no. So we're just going highest and lowest. So wheels versus doors.
Here we go.
Our first one is roads.
Roads. No, and also
It's going to be a vague.
We've done no fact checking. We don't know what any of these things mean. We are giving you all the information we have. So, are there more roads or
are there more horses?
Horses. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna break these down. Okay, roads, horses. What else do we have?
Light years to nearest galaxy.
Light years to nearest galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. Colors detectable by goldfish. That's the next one. So
colors detectable by goldfish. How many colors do you think you can name?
3.
No,
primary.
seriously. I bet you could get. What do you think? 12?
I don't know. Whatever is
like real colors.
Joseph
not
and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Okay.
It was brown.
There's like 8 or 12.
And purple. Yeah, whatever it was. And I don't know. Okay, so we've got roads, horses, light years to nearest galaxy, colors detectable by goldfish.
Okay.
5th one, ducks.
Ducks. Okay.
And number 6, hotel rooms.
Okay.
So listeners at home,
wow,
you can play with us. Which is there the most of? Which is there the least of? We've got roads, horses, light years to nearest galaxy, colors detectable by goldfish, ducks, or hotel rooms.
I'm ready.
All right. What do you say is the highest?
Hotel rooms.
Hotel rooms.
No hesitation.
No hesitation.
I'm so confident. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I'm so confident.
Very confident.
You want my least, or do you want to say your highest first?
I'll say my highest. Balance it out. I'm gonna say light years to nearest galaxy is highest.
That was my lowest.
Ooh,
that's. I think if it was measured in miles, that's real far. Light years might be like 6.
Kind of I've done my research.
I don't know how galaxies are measured.
I've got a spitball
because it takes like 9 minutes from light to get to this, like from the sun to the Earth, and so a light year is the amount of light, how distance it travels in a year.
The answer will blow your mind. All
right, here we go.
Lowest.
What's your lowest? Yeah.
All right, let's flip flop here. All right, I'm gonna say lowest. I'm gonna say colors. Goldfish.
That was my other one. I was torn between.
How would they have? I don't know.
It can't be more than 50. What do you think?
I don't know.
I guess I don't know many colors. I'm really biased on that one because I could probably name 15 colors that are real colors, not like joy or something you're going to find at Lowe's.
Today's episode of 2413. Learn how smart Pastor Dan is. He knows 14 colors.
Now that I say it aloud, I'm not sure I can name 14 colors. That makes me scared.
It just sounds like a competition for like 4-year-olds. I can name 14 colors.
Just like this head-to-head, we just drop out.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Here we go. I'm going to read from highest to lowest.
Okay. Oh, no.
All right.
Highest to okay, what's the highest?
The highest at 100 million is colors detectable by goldfish.
What?
Why?
Stupid.
Okay.
100 million colors. That's not true. This game is failed.
I don't. This is
How would you even know? All right. Measuring the cones and they're okay.
The game does not lie.
All right.
It's absolute truth.
Goldfish can see 100 million colors.
100 million colors, according to Hasbro
There
or
aren't
whoever
100
this
million
made
colors.
this. All right. The second highest is Rhodes at 64,285,000.
4 million. Okay.
So
That counts as a road.
I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Third highest is horses at 58 million.
That's a lot of horses.
It's a lot of horses. All right. Coming in at fourth place, we have ducks at 49.5 million.
Coming in fourth place, ducks as a species.
As a species.
Yeah.
All right. Second lowest is hotel rooms.
Oh my goodness. I was so confident.
16,400,000.
That's weak. That's so weak.
It's not as weak as mine. And the lowest of these is light years to nearest galaxy.
I got one. How many?
2,537,000.
2 million light years?
Yes.
I was thinking it was like going to be 7.
It's absurd. No, it's because it's like when you look at light years to the nearest star, it's still it's pretty vast, but it's not
because the sun is bigger than the other stars we see in the sky.
When you see
by
the
a lot.
Size comparisons, it's crazy. So colors detectable by goldfish.
What did you learn today, Shane?
I've learned not to trust anything anymore.
Okay.
No, I don't. I have.
Gosh,
I have
100
learned
million colors.
I've learned that there's more roads than horses, according to this.
I'm baffled by the color one because even
how do you measure a color?
Maybe they're just like deep in the infrared or the ultraviolet. They can just see this whole realm of reality that's invisible to us. But even if you took the standard rainbow and like sliced every conceivable shade, 100 million unique shades.
Yeah, that's
a lot of colors.
It's too arbitrary. Of like, what counts as a color? You're like, I don't know.
What does count as a color, Shane?
Deep questions. But this is a perfect segue because we're talking about goldfish, and listeners are going to be so confused.
We do have a goldfish reference in the chapter.
We do, and we're continuing our conversation, looking at this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, but also just talking about our lives and our need for rest.
Yeah. So it's not a book study. It's not a book review. Shane and I are talking about rest, why we need it, what that could look like. And we picked up this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer, Comer, as a conversation partner. It was recommended to us by a number of people. So we thought, well, let's read this. We don't know what we're talking about. Clearly, we need help. And this has been a resource to help us think through rushing and hurry and what it might look like to find rest and what that could be in practice and what that could do for us. So today we're looking at the chapter, A Brief History of Speed, just as a way of kind of diagnosing where we are, not just as a culture, because in some sense I don't care about culture. I care about me. Like just to be frank, like I don't care what other people do, but I'm caught up in this life of just flying through stuff. Mm-hmm. And so this chapter helps talk about that.
What we've convinced ourselves to be normal. But we're talking about goldfish and one kind of crazy, fact from this chapter. I'll kind of use this as our segue here. Before the digital revolution, as what John Comer calls before 2000. Or in the year 2000.
This is before smartphones and things like that.
Yeah, before technology really started booming. Our attention span was about 12 seconds. Like, so we could pay attention to something for about 12 seconds before we get distracted or need to move on.
Let's just slow down for a second. Like 12 seconds, just want to kind of let this sink in, is about how long on average we're able to focus on something before our mind wanders to something else.
We'll do a little exercise.
Okay. Do you want me to start?
No.
Do you want to start a timer and challenge me to think? All right,
just,
so listeners,
just sit in 12 seconds.
Think, but maybe think about something. Like try to think about one thing. All right, you get your thing, Shane. You're gonna think about it.
Got it.
All right. It's gonna be just 12 seconds of dead air.
All right.
And time. All right, that's 12 seconds.
Yeah, I suck.
That's not easy.
No. chose to think about the Milwaukee Brewers, and I was
Okay.
just like thinking, and I was like looking at the wall. I'm like, dang it.
So before smartphones, that was kind of the average.
Mm-hmm.
So now that smartphones and
smartphones became a thing, and when this book came out was I don't have the exact. I don't remember the exact. This book didn't come out this year. All to say, so even this information is probably.
Oh yeah. We've not gotten better in the last couple of years.
No, but
this was 2019. This was pre-COVID. 2019. This was published, so it was written before that.
Okay. So in pre-2019, around that time, our 12 seconds of attention span kind of shifted to 8 seconds.
8 seconds,
which is
That's a third.
A third of that time.
What's a TikTok video, like an average one? Or how long do you think people actually look at it before they swipe? Like 2 seconds, a second and a half?
Depends how much it grabs your attention.
A second, like that's a whole platform designed for that. Some of them are longer, but
but if you're not entertained in the first 2-3 seconds, you're on to the next. So, like we've conditioned ourselves to find the most absolute entertaining thing to grab our attention. So, but this is the crazy thing. So, if our attention span nowadays is 8 seconds or worse, probably worse, a goldfish's attention span is 9 seconds.
we're losing to the goldfish.
We are losing to goldfish.
Yes, that's not.
And not only in attention span, but in colors. We're losing
colors. Well, it's not even close.
And we can't even breathe underwater. So what do we have compared to the goldfish?
Yes.
But it is really telling. And so this is kind of like talking about attention span. It's kind of in the middle of the chapter. There's a lot of not beautiful, maybe sad, news statistics and kind of eye-opening facts that Mr. Comer brings up in this. And as we finally kind of make your way to the smartphone, because it's very relevant in everyone's life, we kind of make this bridge to our attention span. We can't be settled by anything.
We're moving from one thing to the next real fast. So that might be physically of like, I'm late for my appointment and I'm running to the other end of the building, which is part of my regular life, it feels like. Or it might be we are moving from one location to the other. So this morning I was coming in, I got caught behind actually yesterday morning, I got caught behind a trash, like picker up or whatever, trash truck.
A garbage truck?
Garbage truck? Sorry. Garbage truck. I'm tired. I got caught behind a garbage truck and a school bus. Both. It was like the double whammy. I'm just like, come on. I was losing my mind.
Waiting for the bus.
Because the school bus isn't going to pass the garbage truck.
Yeah.
And so it's garbage truck and then school bus and then me. And I'm just, and you know what? It probably added 3 minutes to my commute. Like it wasn't much. Although I'll tell you what though, this one bus stop, I'm watching these kids file on, and the last kid gets on, and then there's some girl who's like 10 feet behind the rest of them, and she's just walking. I'm like, hustle, come on, they're all waiting for you. I'm waiting for you. They're waiting for you.
Hurry up now.
She gets halfway, she makes up half that gap, and then she drops like a sticker, and then she's trying to get her sticker off the ground, and Again, I'm trying to be gracious. None of this matters. But this is like my first encounter with the world that morning. I get in my car, have my coffee, leave like my street, and then the first thing is, who is this little girl? Come on. Leave the sticker behind. Just go. We're all waiting. It's like that's not a good way to start the day. Like it's not that big a deal.
On your way to church.
Yeah, this is Monday morning. This is like first step out of the gate. All right, world, what do you have for me this week? Oh, jeez. And just to be very clear, the problem was not the little girl. It was me. Like, what was my stinking hurry? Yeah. Nobody was waiting for me here. And even if they were, I said, I'm 2 minutes late because this little girl is trying to make the bus. Like, and I'm thankful that there's garbage people who pick up our stuff. Like, these are all good things. And I'm just huffing and puffing. Gripping my steering wheel. So all that's to say is I have a problem. We're moving fast from location to location, and our brains are, I'm watching the hockey game which is already a pretty fast sport, not a lot of downtime. And I'm watching it, but I'm like also reaching for my phone and like, peeking out of the corner of my eye to see what's going on there. And better switch to my email very quick just in case somebody emailed me 4 seconds ago. And let me switch to this other app. And meanwhile, I'm watching the game.
Meanwhile, watching mosquitoes fly away.
I didn't watch the mosquito. That's the problem. Yeah, got to be more vigilant. All right, can I share a little section that stood out for me?
Absolutely.
Beginning of the chapter. It's the idea that we have all this amazing technology that conceivably could have made our lives easier, and not just easier, but it could have provided more margin in our lives and more time. So you don't need to spend as much time washing dishes by hand if you can just put them in the dishwasher. So the idea is, okay, if all we had was hand washing, that spends so many hours a week or a month doing it. And now that we've invented the dishwasher, we should get all those hours back in our life. But that's not what happened.
Yeah.
We just started, we got the hours back and then we spent them immediately and tried to do more. So there's this quote here from the book on page 33, if you're following along. He says, in the 1960s, futurists all over the world, so like people thinking about the future in the 1960s, from sci-fi writers to political theorists, thought that by now we'd all be working way fewer hours. So one famous Senate subcommittee in 1967 was told that by 1985, the average American would only work 22 hours a week for 27 weeks a year. And everybody thought the main problem in the future would be too much leisure. So in 1960, they thought, you know what, the way we're making amazing stuff and computers, 20, 25 years from now, the average American's going to work 22 hours a week for 27 weeks of the year, and the rest of the time we're just going to be sitting on the beach.
Yeah.
We don't need to spend as much time doing, I don't have to write letters by hand. I type the email. And so I'm done that much quicker.
Yeah.
Now I can just go play with my kids.
You didn't have to manually write it. You didn't have to put postage on it, walk to the post box or whatever, the mailbox.
So these computers are building things for us. And so now I don't need to spend hours and hours assembling stuff. The robot did it. And now I have all that time back. I can just talk to my wife. I can just go for a walk.
Sounds incredible.
like they really thought that we're going to work basically 20 hours a week for less than half the year, or about half the year. And then so for 6 months of the year, we have no employment. And then for the other 6 months, we're working part-time. And that's just going to be life.
And I like,
that's not my life.
I think too, like if I grew up in the 60s, like I could not, I don't think I could have conceived that they ever could have been wrong though. Like it makes so much sense. Like things are getting so much easier, like way more convenient. We get all this time back from everything we used to do, from automation, from technology. Like, of course, we'll have that much time back, but like you can't account for. Maybe it's human nature. Maybe that's just the detriment of technology. I think those are some things to explore. One more kind of related factoid on this page. He says 2019, when this was written, compared to 1979. So I was born in 1981, if you're curious. So basically over my lifetime, the average American works nearly 4 more weeks per year than they did in 1979. Oh my goodness.
So in the past, 45 years, the average American used to take 4 more weeks of vacation than they do now.
That is wild. I want to see I'm curious if that, I don't know if, I wonder, I can't comprehend it, like how, or is it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors. I think let's talk about why. Why do we fill this time that conceivably some of these conveniences could have freed up for us, rather than enjoying that freedom, we do more, or we fill it immediately? Why is that for you? I don't care about society, Shane. I care about you. You're my Shane.
I don't care about bleep all that out. I honestly think it is like human nature. Like I think
what part of human nature leads us to that, though?
As much as we have this long, yearning, burning desire to rest, which I think everyone does, whether they realize it or not.
I think we were created to have this, but I think we can repress it.
Yeah,
just like we can distort our conscience and it becomes dull.
Yeah, and I think it's distorted, but at the same time, like, I don't think we can rest all the time, and so we naturally want to fill our time. If everything was rest and leisure, then we'd. I think there's limitations to the rest.
So on the positive side, I think God made us for productivity. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's not the right word, but God made us to love our neighbor. Let me say it that way.
Yeah.
God made us He put Adam and Eve to work in the garden.
To bear the fruit.
So
of the
work
world.
is good. Labor is good. And being productive and useful and bettering things and serving others is good.
Yeah. And so I think we were supposed to, by this point, we were supposed to be this much more leisurely or way, way less leisurely than we were back in 1980. But I partly feel like it's a void of we just couldn't do nothing, just sitting on our hands, which I mean might be counter rest, but at the same time we are meant to like we were saying work to get things done.
So here's what I'm hearing there is I am a person of excess. Some people run, a 5K. I'm going to run 81 miles. You don't have to go to the extreme with everything. Gosh. Mm-hmm. So, but I think we tend to be a people of excess. And so we want to do everything to the max. And so if a little work is good, then let's go crazy with it. So, so God has made us for labor. And so we as a people who maybe get carried away with things can take that good gift and we run far with it. Like, sex is good. God made sex. Does that mean you should have sex with everyone all the time? Like, no, that's not what that is.
That's not what this means.
Food is good, but gluttony isn't. Have a glass of wine. That's good, but getting drunk, it's not good.
Exactly. So so in that same vein.
So excess, good of work, we've gone crazy with.
Yeah. And so we are in this, I think in this world right now, or I'm in a part of this culture of just excess work. Yeah. On the flip side, I think there's probably been time and places where there's been excess leisure, and it's just I don't know.
So
laziness.
So one factor in kind of the human nature that maybe has led to a lack of rest and going crazy fast is we've taken a good thing and gone too far with it.
Yeah, that's the theory.
That's good. I think there's a lot of factors,
and I also think a factor might be. I think there are certain technologies that are easily abused, as in, if you have email for work and it's purely for work purposes, it's so convenient. You can communicate with anyone instantaneously, but I think it's not just for work anymore. Mm-hmm. Everything is email, text, instant messaging is all over. And it's also, this technology has become inescapable, or what feels inescapable. I can't,
I like that you caught yourself, by the way. Instead of being a victim of this is inescapable, it does feel inescapable. But I think that gap is really important to stop and think about.
It's hard to imagine. Could I go a week without my phone? Could I go a day without my phone? Yeah. I'm just going to worry too much about, what if my mom's trying to reach me? They'd be so annoyed with me.
So the connectivity that our technology provides, it connects us, and then we can crave that or be afraid of missing out. Mm-hmm. And so the sort of constant being on feeds this idea that we're just always vigilant and we're always working.
Yeah.
Or being on, maybe is a more generic way of saying rather than just working.
Yeah, I think being on, because even if it's not related to work, it takes energy to communicate with people in a very different way than if they were there in person. And even communicating in person still takes energy. But I don't know, just having your phone is almost just you're always there. Everyone's there.
Yeah. I've got several other thoughts of why feel this rush, and they're kind of all over the place, and I'm not any kind of expert, so take any of these with a grain of salt, but I got a few of them.
Yeah.
But one I feel in my own life is my job is never done. And I think there have probably been a lot of historical jobs that were a little more objective. So if you are like farming, okay, you put the seed in the ground. This is me not being a farmer, but like, okay, is it there? Is the soil like have the right acidity and nutrients? Does it have the right water and sun? Okay, there's nothing else you can do. So like, you don't need to do anything. You don't have to go stare at it all the time.
But then at the end of that process,
yeah, then there's labor and you harvest it, but there were things you could do and there were things you couldn't do. And other jobs this week, I've been dreaming about working on an assembly line. Like okay, I want to just be like left front tire guy at the assembly line. And so if I'm left front tire guy, I just put it on, and then I put the next one on. I put the next one on, and did I put it on right? Did I do it to spec? Did I meet the quota? My job's done, and I'm going home, and I don't have to wonder, did I do a good job? Do people like me? No, I objectively did the job. This is the book I've mentioned before called Shop Class as Soul Craft. Not a Christian guy, but he was this think tank guy in DC, and he left this academic world, and he's like, I'm just going to go work on motorcycles because I'm helping people. I fixed what was broken, and like I did it. The job is done. I don't have to wonder. But I think in the last bunch of years, so many people have these like soft skills where you're answering. Like if you work in an office space and you're not directly producing something, how do you know if you did your job?
yeah,
This is Cal Newport talks about this in Deep Work, that we end up having to like justify our existence and our paycheck and our worth as an employee by I'm going to respond to my boss's email right away so he knows I'm working. We don't think about it that way, but we have to prove our contribution somehow. And so some of these, I think, technology things are part of us finding worth. If I'm busy, I must be important.
And how do you, and I even think Comer talks about that too in the same chapter of it's a culture of busyness is a sign of
he said like busyness is a sign of wealth. That's what he said.
Yeah, so maybe like wealth isn't just the only like flex or just like the status factor, but busyness, like you're busy all the time, you must be an important person.
So we're creating value and worth, or we're trying to prove it, and we're trying to matter. Which I would say in some ways is related to another idea. Maybe it's related to worth, but it's more, I'll just call it like idolatry of myself, that I am so important that the world can't function without me. We don't say it that way, but I think that's in the back of my head is if I turn off my phone, somebody might need me. Yeah. And they're going to be disappointed in me or mad at me or whatever great way I'm going to be able to save the day won't happen. And so like I need to be on call all the time in the way that doctors or pastors might have been and certain professions still are.
Which is an interesting, I think, fact or like observation too, because I feel like myself and other people too, like we struggle with self-worth, but we also put that pressure on to be like the most important how's the thing is going to function without.
What would happen if you turned your phone off for a week, Shane? This whole church would crumble. And it wouldn't.
Also with you,
but you kind of want it to. Like you almost want it to. Like I want to be so needed that they can't go without me. So even yesterday, a church member was saying like, Pastor, you need a vacation. Like you gotta for your well-being, I want you to take some extra days off this summer. And my first thought was like, I can't do that. Like what would happen to the staff? What would happen to Shane? Like I need to calm him down. He's going to lose his mind. Like what would happen on Sunday mornings? Like what would happen if I was gone? And so I can't take a vacation because they need me. And friends who are listening, I'm smirking. Shane's laughing at me because this is not true. It's
true. But
it's truly what I'm thinking.
Yes,
It's silly to say it aloud, but that's where I'm at.
And I think yeah, I think that's just the status of a lot of our jobs. And so to be able to, to have that, I don't know, break away from, is it a thought process? Is it an ideology? Is it just subliminally like what we've convinced ourselves from that being? Like, but because I don't think it's strictly related to ministry.
No.
Jobs.
I think this is the world we're living in.
But I also like, because we work in ministry, we work at a church, it just to see all like the functions of that now, or like how you're describing this now, of just like this individualist like importance, like significance of a leader in a church, but then like to compare that with the church of old, and like the church was just the people.
Yeah,
it's just.
Yeah, so we're going fast. For me, it's I want to be needed. I want to prove that I'm worth it. I think there's also that excess of work is good, so more work must be better. I think it also the just go. There is a comparison of like, I want to have all the experiences you're having. And not just you, but I want to have every experience that everyone I know is having.
Yeah,
so like we talk about like fear of missing out, like FOMO, but like just to pause and say there's a real factor of to see other people's experiences and to covet, to want them. I only have one life. Like this sounds obvious, but I can only live one life. This is the life I'm in, and I happen to have a wife and 3 kids and a job and hobbies, and so I have an already reasonably full life. And so the idea of comparing me with even 5 other people and I also want what they have is insane.
It's impossible.
And then what if I have 40 people I'm social media connected with, followers, friends of? Like I want to also live the best of those 40 people's lives in addition to my life. This is crazy.
And
but the desire's there. I see, I want that.
Like I've got kind of two.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Two different thoughts. Like with that, I think that's why it makes it all the harder. Like from when I'm talking to other people who are kind of in this frantic state or just this hustle bustle of life. Like because I'm giving advice because I've got everything figured out, which I don't. I need to give myself everything else, but. Seeing that covet was so bad in my life. Like I used to use social media, like Instagram, Facebook, so much more often than I did.
Yeah.
And I love to look back and be like, oh, I'm glad I like stopped. Like,
yeah.
Because you're just forcibly surrounding yourself with everything good at every moment of other people's lives, and like I want this in my own.
Yeah, and to be clear, if that's your deal, go for it, people. And like just to be blunt, I don't care what you do. For me, this wasn't healthy.
No, like,
so
it
just
was not healthy
Shane
for
speaking
me.
for Shane.
I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah.
Like it was just so not healthy, just because it's covet and desire of everything with that. And the other, the other thought I had with that, like we're so surrounded by everything we want, everything we can't fit in a 7-day week. Yet you're telling me to sit still and be leisure once a week, like to have a Sabbath day of rest. Like
if you take the day off, they're going to keep going.
Yeah, you're missing on so much opportunity. Like
there's I don't know if it's a hockey team right now. Sorry, I watch a fair amount of sports. But maybe this is multiple ones. I've seen a number of commercials recently with the phrase "there is no off season," and it's just to me like that really captures a lot of what we're talking about. If you don't work out, the other team is going to.
Yeah,
and so going back to running for a second, I like to run. I help coach Federal Way Track Club, both cross country and track, and raising a little runner. We are very intentional. When one season's over, we take at least 2 or 3 weeks and do nothing. And I don't push it. Maybe a week or two before the next season starts, we'll start shaking the cobwebs off. But there are plenty of other people who are like, all right, well, if the Weber kids are resting, this is our chance to get ahead. And you know what? Maybe next cross country season they are ahead. And okay. but I'm not trying to groom a little professional athlete or Olympian. And so, but that idea of there is no off season, I think translates to business or school or acquiring things that if you coast, they're not going to, and so you're not allowed to coast either.
I don't want to make everything sports analogy, but that really makes me think baseball statistics. I don't know, I've seen like the amount of like baseball injuries, especially in pitchers.
Yeah.
And like the primary like pitchers, like what do you call it, like blowing their arms because it's just the body can only take so much use and fatigue, and athletes are starting younger and younger to be trained. And athletes are better than they've ever been, ever. But we are the bodies of these athletes who have started from such a young age are literally killing themselves because they can't keep up. But I think it's it's not beautiful, that's sad, but like the imagery of just like we have limitations. Our bodies, our minds, our souls, we have limitations built into us. We cannot do it all. Like it's just, that just makes me think of like how go. Like if you're resting, the other team is getting better. Like you're pushing yourselves in just all the wrong ways.
Yeah, and I think finances are part of this too, because we those of us who are working, we have bills to pay, right? Yeah, and so we work in some ways to keep paying the bills. But I think for me and for a number of people I've interacted with, there's this ever increasing list of things we're spending money on. So some things cost more. Like I feel the same pinch as our listeners do and as you do, as gas prices and taxes and insurance. Like things are going up. But also, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, whenever it was, I didn't have a smartphone. Like that's a choice I've made to make that a monthly payment. Like 25 years ago, I didn't have Netflix. That's not a necessity in my life, but I'm so used to it that expense feels like having electricity.
Yeah,
like it's just so you necessary. Have to, like you have to, or you have to have a car, or again, these aren't bad things, but obviously you have to eat, you have to have a dining out budget a little bit every month. And
like you have to have personal expenses.
Yeah, there's all these expenses that would my life be easier if I didn't have those things? Would I not have to work as much, or I wouldn't have to have a side hustle or two or three just to keep up with some of these optional things that don't feel optional.
I feel like it's a yes and no too.
Yeah,
of just like I think there's certain. I don't know if there's like an income threshold limit where like now you can start struggling, but also at the same time, like I think there's plenty. I know there's plenty of people also like just the income doesn't cut it in
for sure.
scenarios.
I actually listened to a podcast about that not too long ago of does money make you happier? And the answer was yes to a certain point.
Yeah.
And it's pretty low.
I like that.
It was like
yes to a certain point.
Yeah. I want to say it was like $40,000 a year. Like if you're under, I think it was like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was like 40,000. That if you make less than $40,000 a year, you have certain struggles. And so if you make 25 instead of 20, your life is better. If you make 30 instead of 25, your life is better.
But then
once you get to, it's something like $40,000. Like maybe it's 60, but it's pretty stinking low. That once you're there, adding more money doesn't actually make you any happier.
Gives you more conveniences.
Yeah, but that doesn't actually make you happier.
Yeah.
So like I have friends who don't own a TV. And
that sounds bliss.
Yeah. So on the one hand, you're like, I could never do that. I wouldn't know about this, and I wouldn't be able to watch this. They are a happy family, and it's not like a financial thing. He's a doctor. He's a surgeon, and they've chosen.
He could buy the biggest TV.
They've chosen to say, you know what, this doesn't add value to our life, and I see how many hours other people do it and what it does to them, so we're not going to. And they just made that choice. And
That's
so,
awesome. Wow.
so they have the time back. They're not spending money on cable, so they have like the money back. So it allows them to make choices just intentionally that any of us are free to make. My point here is with there's assumptions about comforts and values in my life that this is obviously good, so obviously I have to spend money. But then that kind of backs into, well, things just keep costing more, so I got to keep working. Well, you don't, there's times I think to revisit, what do I actually need to spend money on or want to? Because not everything has to be a need. I think Netflix is great. I mean, once you've watched everything, you've watched everything. But like, some days I like my smartphone and there's value to it. But other days I'm like, I'm just a slave to this thing that's costing me money. Like, if it's killing my brain and my soul and my bank account, I should just stop.
Why am I funding?
I'm like, nope. The government is not requiring me to have this. My employer is not requiring me to have this. There's enough things that I like about it, and there's enough addiction in my life that I feel compelled to have it.
Yeah.
But I don't have to.
Yeah.
So just exploring freedom for my own sake here.
Yeah. So
other things from this chapter stand out to you, Shane?
I know I talked a little bit about it, I think, the last episode, but I just couldn't get over the kind of there was a kind of at the beginning of this chapter, there was a natural progression of talking about the early primitive life, the life before the clock.
Yeah.
Which is just a profound thought unto itself. Like I can't imagine the world without a clock. Maybe that's just because I live in Washington now, and like I couldn't imagine life without a clock, because half of the year we'd get 2 hours of sunlight and the other half would get 2 hours of daylight.
Pretty extreme.
So I think there's certain extremes, but to live life without a clock is just like blows my mind to think like, no, when something is at 10 a.m., like, darn it, it's at 10 a.m., like, there's no wiggle room. You have to be early to be on time. Like, these are the facts. But like, what do people do before the clock? You just, like, when the sun is right about there, let's
they were probably more relaxed. And there are a lot of cultures today that still live that way.
Yeah, so
they might have the technology, but it's a different cultural expectation of, if they say the wedding's at 2, it's not starting until 4:30.
I mean, there's a reason that island time has become so popular. Because there's a lot of cultures south of us, non-European cultures, I guess, like, where it's just like, hey, the bus is going to be here at 10, and we've got me and a bunch of other Americans waiting there at 9:55, and then the bus shows up at 10:45, and they're like, hey, we're here. Like, where have you been? Like, no, this is just normal.
And they're relaxed, and
relaxed.
You're the anxious person.
Yeah, I'm just trying to hurry on to the next thing. It's got to be so punctual. But like, life before the clock was just such a profound thought to imagine. Because like, I can't fathom that. Like, from the moment I've been born into this world, I've lived and died by the clock. Like,
in Cal Newport's Digital Minimalism, he talks about kind of adaptations people make to avoid their addictive technology. And for a number of young people, he said one of the things that was helpful for them was buying a wristwatch, kind of related to time, because what had happened was they didn't have a watch because they had their phone. So they would open their phone to see what time it was. And while I'm here, I may as well unlock this and then just start scrolling. And so simply by buying a watch, that took away that entry point into a kind of predetermined rhythm in their life. Like these cues, I think is a fancy word for it. Like opening their phone was a cue to open up this other app, which was a cue to open up this other app.
Which, I guess I live and die by transition and segues.
I love it
now. And I guess that's just the
Are you on page 36 or 37?
32 now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
It's all embedded within this whole chapter. But this chapter really does make a point on smartphones, kind of in talking about them. And so we were talking about attention spans and how it's tanked, and kind of the digital revolution, like AKA when the iPhone was invented, was kind of the turn in that progression of when we started getting a lot more busier and a lot more distracted by everything.
There's a couple like really profound quotes about that in here, or at least some data. On the bottom of 36, he said a recent study found that the average iPhone user touches his or her phone 2,617 times a day. So I'm assuming that's like each tap for like a text message. That's not like unlocks, but you touch your phone 2,617 times a day. Each user is on his or her iPhone for 2.5 hours every day at over 76 sessions. So the average iPhone user unlocks their phone 76 times a day, which is basically 10 times an hour. And well, maybe it's not 10 times an hour, but like in a working day. Like.
But I would boldly say that like this, like even that statistic is significantly out of proportion.
That was 5 years ago.
Before COVID.
Yeah.
So like COVID just, I don't want to say, I don't want to make up numbers, but everything was digital like during COVID. And
he also comments that average is the average of all users. So your grandma who uses her phone once a week is skewing that. So he says another study found that millennials put that number is at twice as much.
Mm-hmm. And that's still pre-COVID. Like
and that's 5 years ago. I'm going to quote on the same topic. He said a similar study found that just being in the same room as our phones, even if they are turned off, will reduce someone's working memory and problem-solving skills. Just knowing that it's in the room will make you dumber.
Do you think that's just because it takes you're distracted because like it's there?
I know for me I haven't figured out why this is, but I know like so my phone right now it's perfectly within arm's reach. Mm-hmm. If I were to toss it on the other side of the room and I'm tethered to our podcast recording,
do it.
All right, I'm going to do it in a non-breaking it sort of way. Oh, that was a hard toss.
Shattered. It's the humanity. Oh no.
So at the risk of sounding silly, I know that I feel different when it's out of reach. So when I leave a room, one of my first things is to grab my phone. Like it's hard for me to walk away from a room and not have it. Yeah. But if I consciously do, like if I leave it, this happened the other day, I left my phone in the house on mute and I went out back with a book, like on my deck. And as soon as I closed the door, it was like I could breathe. It was like,
intentionally.
Like I intentionally left my phone but I felt like in my very body and soul, when I knew it was out of reach in a different room and I couldn't hear it, at first I thought, am I allowed to do this? What if Charlotte needs me? Mm-hmm. And I said, it's going to be fine because I'm not God and God will watch over her for this half hour, I'm pretty sure. but I closed the door and I felt freer just not having it in the same room with me. Like experientially, this is true for me. This might not be true for everybody, but I know for me, if my phone is in a different room and I can't hear it, I breathe easier.
I think because it is a device that is demanding of your attention, and it also like its purpose and design isn't just to be helpful anymore, and Comer speaks into this. This was another big takeaway for me in this chapter of the phone. Like obviously, like when it was invented, you could call anyone anywhere as long as they had a phone that was bolted to the wall and connected to the ecosystem of phones. And then it's just kind of evolved over time through text and now internet and now everything everywhere all at once in your pocket. But it was interesting talking about John Comer brings up Sean Parker, who's the first president of Facebook. Mm-hmm. Sean Parker now calls himself a conscientious objector in social media. And he kind of speaks out now against these big companies as a kind of an advocate for people. But the companies, like phones, social medias, these conveniences to grab our attention and to stay up to date in the world, their goal is how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible? And he admitted, like as the president, that was their job. Just to consume and take as much time as you feasibly can on your phone. And I think like a lot of the world, as much as I want to say, is like coming to and kind of like I hope people know that like like this company, whatever it might be, if the phone manufacturer or the social media or the app,
they're not your friend.
They're not like they're not your friend. They're not for you in the way that
and
want to hope.
And as I think about me specifically, and not you or any other listener, what I have observed in myself, specifically like with phone stuff here, it might be that the phone companies are bad or the app creators are bad. Maybe they have malicious intent. I don't know. I think most of them are probably trying to make money and live the dream. But what I experience for myself is that whatever their intentions may or may not be, me using my smartphone, I like the word using, by the way. Like user used to be like a drug user. This guy's a user. Like, there's something true there.
Absolutely.
But what I've noticed in me is that it appeals to the worst parts of me, which I think is a lot of people's observation about this attention economy, is that they hijack our brains, or the technology is built to appeal to kind of almost like weaknesses in our evolutionary brain or how God has made us. So that it's not necessarily the phone's fault that I have these weaknesses, but the phone plays into my insecurities and weaknesses. So I, for example, on the couch, I'm going to not just watch TV, I'm going to check my email because somebody might need me and I want them to. And I'm also, I better look at my calendar tomorrow to see what I'm supposed to do, because I'm a really important person and I've got a lot of things and I got to make sure I have time to get it all done. And I'm also going to check my feed to see, like, so there are things in me that this just makes easier. So it's not my phone's fault that I want to feel important, but the phone just says, hey, don't you want to feel more important? And I'm like, I sure do want to feel more important. And it plays into something that's already not good in me.
Yeah. And it is built as a convenience. I like it's trying, like, you're looking at your calendar because calendars are good.
Which
calendars
is amazing,
are helpful.
by the way. Like, I grew up in a world where there was the calendar at home hanging on the wall.
In the kitchen.
And you had to call mom and make sure it got on the official paper calendar because that was the official calendar. And now Charlotte and I can just digitally do that. I don't have to wonder. I don't have to talk to her, by the way, to make plans. Yeah. I can make plans with you and see what we're doing. I don't have to talk to her. So the convenience of a shared calendar means I'm more disconnected from my wife. And yet I don't want to go back to a paper calendar, but maybe my life would be better if I did, because I would have to talk to my family more and I would probably be much more reluctant to schedule things.
You have to remember.
And you know what, let me get back to you and see if Friday night does work. And now all of a sudden it's like, I talked to my kids about impulse buy this weekend. They wanted to buy something. And I said, that might be a great thing to buy. Let's give it a week and see if we still want it. And that cooling off period is really valuable. Yeah. But the same thing, hey, do you want to go to this thing? If I can just look at my calendar and it's available, I'm more likely to say yes because I'm supposed to say yes. As opposed to, you know what, let me check with Charlotte and get back to you. That drive home, the conversation about priorities, and then the responsibility to call you back, I bet a paper calendar would keep my calendar way freer than it is. So this thing that started off as a convenience, it's so great. Now I'm not talking to Charlotte. I'm saying yes to too many things. I'm overscheduled. Yeah. And like, if I just had to go home and ask her and talk to her and look at what else we might do, like make a conscious choice of how could we spend that evening.
I think with the paper calendar too, like you have the limitation, like you can only fit so much on a single block of a calendar. On my phone, I'm like, well, I've got 5 minutes in between here and here. And then
you can double book. Yeah. You can put any number of appointments you want at the same hour. It's not going to yell at you. At least my iCal doesn't yell at me. I could, or whatever, it's just called calendar now.
Yeah. But the calendar, like.
But your physical one, when the box is full, the box is full.
Yeah, like, oh, this is probably too much now. Now that like this cube sized.
Yeah.
Maybe it had something to do.
So yeah, this technology plays into my weaknesses. I want to please you. I want to do more. I want convenience, and maybe that's not helping.
I don't think it's helping me.
But it's just crazy to think like we could have a paper calendar. I'm probably not going to, but I could. Nobody's making me use this digital calendar.
Yeah.
And there are absolute benefits to my life for having it, but I'm so often ignorant of the costs and I haven't weighed them.
I just wonder, where's in my head, I think kind of where's the line of my convenience of like, at what point is convenience detrimental for me? Because certainly I think a lot of what my phone does in my life. It's so convenient for so much. Like
Right.
even if I like worked solely from a computer and I couldn't work from my phone or anything, like would that help condition, like never allowed to do any work whatsoever on my phone?
Would that help?
Would it help? I don't like. That's just
Yeah.
like
And-
where's the line threshold of convenience of what it's unhealthy at this point?
Right. I've got two more quotes from here, and then I'm going to get back to that. If we wrap up here. But I think to your thing, what you just said of what if I never did this again, as I've been reading beyond this book and some other things about the idea of like Sabbath as a literal 24-hour rest, I think some of those authors would say they're not necessarily proposing you never do it again. So Cal Newport would say you should stop all technology and then consciously choose what you want to do. Mm-hmm. The idea of Sabbath is, you know what, use whatever you want. But what if you just took one day a week and you didn't? Not saying you should never do it again, but what if you just took one 24-hour period and you didn't use your phone or your TV? Mm-hmm. Every week, just take one day and disconnect. Like, like that kind of sounds amazing. But two quotes just related about these technology things. This is page 42. He says, I think it's wise to cultivate a healthy suspicion of technology. Technological and even economic progress does not necessarily equal human progress. So a technology improving does not equate my life is better or my humanity is fuller. And then the very final quote, or question of this chapter before we start moving into some other things next week, he says, my question is simple. What is all this distraction, addiction, and pace of life doing to our souls? So if being a human is different than just being an animal, and maybe even if it is the same, maybe we are just animals. Okay, I'll go with that for a second. Is this actually making my earthly experience better? And let's assume for a second we're more than just a reproducing animal with carnal desires and the need to eat and consume. What if we have a soul and being human matters in like a deeper sense? Is the way I'm structuring my life and going about things healthy for me as a person? Not just like, is it advantageous to my relationships or my comforts, but the well-being of my soul. Is this good for it? Which is a question. Even as I ask it, my first thought is, when would I have time to think about that? I don't have time for such deep questions. And my rabbit hole brain is like it's taking. If you take this stuff away, and I think we'll talk more about this later chapters, episodes, but if you take all this away, like, okay, then what is good for my soul? Yeah, that's a good question. I also want to quickly acknowledge the irony here that probably almost everyone who's listening to this very conversation right now is either on a smartphone or on YouTube. And like the very culprits that we're describing for at least for our well-being is allowing us to expand this conversation. So we're not saying YouTube is bad or smartphones are bad. We're saying they can lead to some really harmful choices and not healthy choices for us. And we want to acknowledge and we're wrestling with, okay, there is good. Like we're recording this podcast on purpose. Now, I will say, as much as I love our listeners, it might be a better trade. Never listen to 2414 podcast again. Instead, whatever day it is right now, we're recording this on a Tuesday. I would rather you for the rest of eternity or your earthly life to say, you know what, on Tuesday evenings, I'm going to have a 90-minute conversation with a friend. We're going to go to a coffee shop. We're going to go to a bar. We're going to have dinner, and we're going to talk about life. Please, it's been fun. Thanks for listening. Go do that. Like, I think the world will be a better place.
So that's what I was thinking. I was thinking too of just like this is nice and all, but like our end game from this, if we're trying to, I don't know, make you think a certain way or we're just talking, by the way. There's no agenda for this. But if your takeaway, listener, was just to value the conversations and to set apart time to have these kinds of talks, I think the world would be a much better place.
Because that's what it is for you and me, Shane.
It really is.
We would do this if nobody was listening.
We would. And we do sometimes.
And we do. But we think this is really important to talk about stuff and have space as friends to process and journey through life together. And can we model and invite people to be part of that? That's what this podcast is. And so honestly, I'm really glad you're listening and watching, and let's talk face to face about it. But our goal is to live life and love one another well. And so if that means you stop listening and you start having face-to-face conversations with actual people you're talking with and listening to, like, that would be a win for us. Because that's what we're doing. Like, if you're enjoying this show and maybe there's some content of new information, or maybe you're laughing at times, at least, I don't know. I laugh every time. But that's just a taste of, that's what it looks like to have a friend and have time to experience life with. And it takes an hour and a half every single week.
You can't.
So you
can't rush conversation.
Yeah. So if you're enjoying what Shane and I get to have, I'm just saying you can have that, because what you're enjoying and listening to is just people who've taken time to talk to each other and listen to each other about what matters. And sometimes what doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like how many colors a goldfish can see. I'm going to Google that one later. Which I'm thankful for the internet that I can Google it.
Where's Tom Petty from? I don't know.
Yeah, you just didn't know.
Yeah. There was a time and place where you just didn't know everything.
If you didn't know where Tom Petty was from, you just didn't know. And then you had that moment of discovery and the wonder. That's a bit from, what's his name?
Pete Holmes.
Pete Holmes, thank you. Not appropriate all the time, but it's a funny little bit of the gap between not knowing and knowing, and like wonder. That's a gift. So maybe I won't Google how many goldfish colors.
Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But
this has been good, Shane.
This has been good. Thank you, and thank you, listeners, for listening or pretending to listen to give us an excuse to talk, if nothing else.
That's good. Continue the conversation. If this is helpful or interesting to you, Shane and I love to hear that. It's good for our egos. It encourages us. We need encouragement too. We don't know what parts of how we interact are most helpful or least helpful for you. I will tell you that, as at least maybe this is true of every profession, but as church workers, we typically hear no feedback or negative feedback. Those are the two options. Like,
it is a hard line.
Yeah, it's like you're bad here or crickets.
Or hope we're doing good.
So, crickets is better than being mean, but crickets doesn't necessarily feel good. So if this is helpful, you can do the review thing, or you can just give me a high five on Sunday and say, hey, like the conversation, and that would build us up.
Immensely.
All right. Thank you, Shane. Thanks, viewers. Thanks, listeners. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
That's the end of the episode, but we want to continue the conversation. Continue the conversation by sharing this episode, subscribing, or leaving a review. Connect with us on Instagram at 2414podcast. Connect with us through email at 2414@stlukes-church.com. Or best of all, keep the conversation going by inviting someone to process with you, so that you can each walk away with more understanding that leads to more conversation as the journey continues. If you happen to be in the Seattle-Tacoma area of Washington, stop by on a Sunday morning and say hi. 2414 is a podcast produced by St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Federal Way, Washington. To find more content, discover upcoming opportunities to connect in person, or to support the show, head on over to stlukes-church.com. Thanks for walking with us.